The annual Islamic pilgrimage to Mecca, known as Hajj, is the fifth pillar of Islam and is regarded as the holiest time of the year in Islamic calendar. The pilgrimage is a mandatory religious duty for Muslims that must be carried out at least once in their lifetime. Beyond the rites and traditions performed during this holy journey, Hajj bears great religious significance for Muslims all over the world, especially the climax of Hajj, known as the Day of Arafat. This falls on the 9th day of the 12th and final month in the Islamic calendar and is also the day before the major Islamic festival of Eid al-Kabir. As is the custom on this day, before noon, pilgrims arrive Arafat, a barren plain about 20 kilometers east of Mecca, offering supplications, repentance and atonement for their past sins, seeking mercy from God and listening to scholars giving sermons near Mount Arafat. This observance lasts from noon till sunset and is known as standing before God. For those who could not travel to Mecca for the pilgrimage, it is expected that they also spend the day praying and fasting, as Arafat carries great spiritual reward for Muslims. When the sun sets on Arafat, the dawn comes on the festival of Eid al-Kabir, known also as the Grand Eid. The festival concludes the pilgrimage to Mecca and is the commemoration of Ibrahim's willingness to obey Allah by sacrificing his son before he was stopped by Allah and a ram used in his place. During the feast, Muslims reenact Ibrahim's obedience by sacrificing a cow or ram. The family will eat about a third of the meal, while a third goes to friends and relatives, and the remaining third is donated to the poor and needy. On this episode of Good Morning Nigeria, guests shall be looking at the significance of Arafat and Eid al-Kabir celebration.
All right, thank you, Ekene, for that background report. Now to discuss the topic, Arafat and significance of Eid al-Kabir, let me introduce our guest here in the studio in Abuja, Imam Mustafa Agbariri. He is an Islamic scholar and would like to welcome him to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you for having me. Good morning, Nigeria.
And also joining us from our network center in Jos, Plateau State, Ustaz Ahmed Murtala Wasey, Secretary General of Al Amur Bil Ma'ruf Foundation. Thank you very much for joining us.
All right. We also have two guests who are joining us via Zoom from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. First, we would like to welcome Dr. Musa Olaofe, Chief Imam Ansaruddin Society of Nigeria, Abuja branch. You can see there are two images there on our screen. Well, I'm sure we're going to have a split screen later because this is tombstoning. With, as I said, Dr. Musa Olaofe, Chief Imam and Saruddin Society of Nigeria, Abuja branch, is one of the guests. Well, the other who is a guest is one of us, and that's Yusuf Umar, is the Nigerian Television Authority correspondent, who is also in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Yusuf, Umar, I hope you can hear us clearly. If you can, let's begin the conversation with you and then bring in Dr. Musa Olaofe presently. Tell us what it has been like for Nigerian pilgrims who are performing this year's Hajj, considering that this is a unique experience since the COVID-19 pandemic.
Hello.
Hello. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. I didn't get your question very well because of the network issue. Can you please help me repeat the question?
All right. Simple question for a correspondent, namely, what's been the experience like for Nigerian pilgrims who are on this year's Hajj against the backdrop of its uniqueness since the COVID-19 pandemic?
Well, Kingsley, it has been a very unique experience, especially for the Nigerian pilgrims. First, when you consider the number of pilgrims, initially the Nigerian pilgrims, like the last Hajj, Nigeria had over 90,000 pilgrims. Well, this time around, we have only 43,000 pilgrims. And same goes to most of the countries of the world. Indirectly, it means that Nigerian pilgrims have there wasn't too much congestion in terms of performing religious duties for this year's Hajj, and that gave Nigerian pilgrims opportunity to pray hard for themselves, for their families, the nation, and for God to intervene in the present realities we are facing in our country.
Yusuf, let me ask you: is this your first pilgrimage?
Yeah, clear. This is my first.
Wow! Congratulations. Tell us, how do you feel?
Well, I feel blessed. I feel privileged, especially looking at previous Hajj, like what I said, the recent one that was had, which was 2019. There were about 3 million pilgrims who converged in Mecca and Medina to perform that year's Hajj. But this year, it is only 1 million pilgrims across the globe. So indirectly, it's a serious blessing. And additionally, Saudi authorities were able to make a lot of arrangements to show make some differences regarding what it used to be. For instance, now provisions of food for pilgrims. Then you see they make a lot of good and nourishable food for pilgrims. They feed pilgrims like at least 2 times a day, morning and dinner. In terms of accommodation, what it used to be, what we had before is like Nigerian pilgrims were like being accommodated far away from the haram, which this time around is different. Because, for instance, within our stay in Medina, it's just like a 5-minute walk, we are already in haram. And within for now that we are in Mecca, it doesn't take you more than 7 or maximum of 10 minutes, you are already in haram. So these are some of the little differences that we feel we are honored, we are privileged, and we give God the glory, and we appreciate Him for giving us this opportunity to be part of this year's Hajj.
Yusuf, what has been the mood amongst Nigerian pilgrims, and has there been any newsworthy event amongst them?
Well, for now, let me say, for Nigerian pilgrims, actually, it is a time of happiness, a time of giving, appreciating God and thanking Him for His blessings on them. Why I said so is because most Nigerians were delighted to be here, especially when you consider that for the last 2 years, there wasn't Hajj, and this is the 3rd year. And moreover, if you look at the amount for this year's Hajj, the fare is about 2.5 million naira. Though even the authorities concerned were not anticipating the level of those who are going to declare interest to come for this year's Hajj. But at the end of the day, so many people declared their interest, and at the end of it, some, or let me say, very few cannot even make it to Hajj this year. Maybe simply because of the little number that are being given. For Nigerians, it has been a very good, wonderful experience, and they are actually enjoying their stay here in Mecca, as well their stay in Medina. Like this morning, while we were coming from the Mina, where we spent the night there, and some of Nigerian pilgrims spent the night or two, most of them were happy in gratitude to Allah for giving them this opportunity and seeing the day of Arafat.
All right, let me also ask you, Yusuf, you're now in Arafat, and I'd like you to share with us, what spiritual virtues that it has conferred on you, and by extension on other pilgrims there, and it's considered a day of standing. That's what I'm made to know, or a day of meeting, if you may. So just tell us the spiritual implications of this.
First and foremost, let me clear this impression. It's not actually a day of standing. It's a day where Muslims gather to appreciate God for the blessings in their lives, seek for His forgiveness, as well try to show their, let me use this word, allegiance for what He has been doing to them and to their lives. It must not be necessary for a Muslim who is at the Arafat video to be standing. You can stand for a while. You can be in your tent praying, supplicating, and doing so many things to glorify the Almighty Allah.
All right, Yusuf, just before we bring in Dr. Olaofe, tell our viewers, it's to 8 in the morning here with us in Nigeria. What time is it in Saudi at the moment? And following from that, what is the schedule of events for today, which is Arafat Day?
Okay, in Saudi Arabia now is about 11 o'clock, 3 minutes to 11 o'clock, because we have 2 hours intervals between Saudi and Nigerian time. And for Nigerian pilgrims, they are also privileged to have today's Arafat as well being Friday, which is also a special day among the days in Islam. So they are scheduled first any moment from now. Most of them started gathering at the mosque for the prayer sermon and prayers, after which they will still continue with their supplications to Almighty Allah, and later in the evening pilgrims will move to perform their third rituals for this year's Hajj.
Okay.
There is also a provision that NACON has organized national prayer for Nigeria and Nigerians, especially regarding the circumstances we find ourselves. So there is going to be a special prayer later in the day, in the afternoon, and it is going to be it's organized by NACON, and it's going to involve almost all Muslims that are here, especially Nigerians in particular.
Yusuf, I'm wondering, as a correspondent, how are you combining both? Your spiritual obligation and your official duties.
Well, clear, it's actually a very challenging task, but as a correspondent, you have to be up and doing to ensure that one, you are able to perform the spiritual Hajj, as well ensure that you provided the expected services to the organization who you are representing here. So you can't take chances, leave any of the two. You must have to ensure that both the two were able to go as expected.
Yusuf, if you don't have any immediate assignment, we're going to have to pause you and come back to you later in the course of the conversation, because you touched on a significant point, which is what Nigerian pilgrims will be doing later in the day in terms of prayers, considering our current national circumstance. So, Yusuf Umar, thank you in the meantime, but let's pause you and bring in Dr. Musa Olaofe, who is Chief Imam of the Ansarudin Society of Nigeria, Abuja branch. Dr. Musa Olaofe, well, if we can get you, well, we understand that your Zoom is off. So let's go over to our Just Network Center. We saw him a while ago on the screen. Ustaz Ahmed Murtala Wase, who is the Secretary General of Al Amru Bil Maruf Foundation. Ustaz Ahmed, we're glad to have you on Good Morning Nigeria today. Just break it down for us. Why Arafat Day?
Good morning. Thank you for having me. Alhamdulillah. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa ahlil uqdatan min lisani. Assalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah. Alhamdulillah. Today is Arafat, the 9th day of Zulhijjah. It's a very important day in Islam. In fact, there is a hadith narrated by Abu Dawood. The entire message and practice of Hajj is narrowed down to this day. Alhamdulillah. There are different dimensions to look at, from which to look at the significance of Arafat and Eid al-Kabir, but particularly today, I'm going to be focusing more on the economic dimension of the significance of Arafat and Hajj entirely. If we look at it, it's quite very few you see documentary focusing on that aspect, and the world stands to gain huge opportunities, which is already many look at it as if Saudi Arabia is the only country that gains from this, but it's a global impact economic wise. From my professional practice as a migration economist, I see Arafat having impact on the entire aviation industry in the world. If you look at the data, international passenger traffic data from IATA International Transport Association, you can see the reason Saudi Arabia is having about 46 million traffic of international passengers and the data of 2019. And when you compare Saudi Arabia with other countries like Egypt and Oman within the Middle East region that are having 11 million and 13 million respectively, you can understand why Saudi Arabia is having that large number of international traffic, which is quite impactful economic wise for the country and for the entire aviation industry. We see the multiplier impact for Boeing, which is a manufacturer of airline and other airline manufacturing companies. Coming down to our countries in Nigeria, we're having over 43,000 pilgrims attending Hajj this year. If you look at the impact of this operation locally, from airline operators to airline staff and other smaller businesses working at the airport and within the Hajj and Umrah operations, it comes with a lot of economic benefit. We'll be looking at this later on, and I also look at the social impact of this, which are going to derive from the last sermon of the Prophet, peace be upon him. It is very, we are talking about the significance of Arafat and Hajj and Eid al-Kabir. We focus on these things. They are very important and topics that attract the attention of the world. We look at a few themes from the khutbah, the last Prophet, peace be upon him, the issue of gender, where he emphasized on the of women. We also look at the issue of discrimination, where he specifically mentioned that human beings are equal and we should treat all human beings regardless of their race with dignity. I also emphasize on the importance of reconstruction of interpretation, where in the last few sentences of his sermon he said that he prays that may the last generation understand his message much better than the present and people who were present when he delivered the sermon. This is an opportunity for us to understand that it is possible for us to reconstruct and redefine the interpretation of the message in a sermon. It will go a long way to add value to humanity as a whole. Thank you very much.
Right. Ustaz Ahmed, thank you very much for your response. Very interestingly, you touched on the economic perspectives that should also be considered in evaluating the whole idea of the pilgrimage and Arafat and all that. There are issues you raised there. We will seek to interrogate them going forward. But let's come back to Abuja studios. Imam Mustafa Akbari, an Islamic scholar. We've kept you on pause. You listen to our correspondent Yusuf Umar, who's right there in Mecca, and of course our other guest, Ustaz Ahmed in Jos. But we're still having the Zoom issue with Dr. Musa Alafe. I'm sure once our engineers are able to get him on a better bandwidth from his end, then it will be easier to also get his perspective. But I would like to repeat the question I posed to Ustaz Ahmed a moment ago. Why Arafat?
Thank you for the question. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Let me join Malab Yusuf in congratulating him for being part of this year Hajj. It's a special day, Arafat, Arafat commemorates two things. Number one, it stands and signposts the Hajj itself. The Hajj, everything you do in the Hajj does not come to any conclusive stage but on Arafat day. That is why the hadith of Ustaz Ahmad is very important. The hadith of Tirmidhi, who said that the Prophet said, Al-Hajj Arafah. Hajj itself is Arafah. Me, coming from the legal background as a lawyer, because he spoke about the economic background perspective as the immigration person, Hajj itself, you cannot have the reward of Hajj without doing Arafah, without standing on the month of Arafah. The man said standing is standing. Qiyam bil Arafah. You stand in the Arafah in that month. When you're tired, you go into your tent, you do some supplications, then you go back there and stand. So that is number one. Number two of Arafah is that it tells us that it's a day of meeting. I can't agree less with what my sister said the other time. It's a day of meeting. It starts dating back from Adam and Eve, Hawa, when Allah sent them down from the Garden of Eden. That is the place where they met. They were praying. They were saying, God, forgive us. We have sinned. When they ate from the fruits, forbidden fruits, and Allah sent them away. They prayed and Allah forgave them. By the time the forgiveness of Allah is now descending on them, that is the place where they met. Then the meeting points.
Take that again.
Yes, Adam and Hawa, when they sinned in the Garden of Eden,
Yes,
by eating the forbidden fruit,
Yes.
Allah sent them away. And he said, you should go back to the heart. So that in that place, you work for everything. In that place, in the Garden of Eden, everything works for them. If you want anything, you have it. If you want this, you have it. By the time Allah now give them the sight of their nakedness, having eaten from the fruit, he sent them to the heart. They got to their heart, they were praying, God forgive us. Rabbana zalamna anfusana. That is the language of the prayer. Oh God, we have sinned against ourselves. If you don't forgive us, you have mercy on us. We are going to be doomed. So at that point, God said, I've answered your supplication. Where they met, they were looking around for themselves because they were the only two creatures as humans in the entire universe. So they were looking for them. They just met themselves, and that is the place. That Arafat.
The vast plain desert of Arafat.
Yes, that is where they met. And they said, oh, my wife, my husband. They hug one another. So it stands for two things. The commemoration of the meeting of Hawa and Adam, when Allah forgave them all their sins. Number two is that it is the signpost of the Hajj, the completion of the work of the Hajj. That is the significance of Arafat. So on that day, the Prophet said all prayers that he said on the day of Arafat shall be accepted. Let me go and drift in another side. You know, for Ramadan, we have what we call Laylatul Qadr, Night of Majesty. You have asked me questions about it. Night of Majesty, you search for it from the 21st day of Ramadan to the 21st night to the 30th. That is 29th night. You search for that. Allah deposited that and he said you should be searching. For the case of Arafat, he gave you the day in Dhul Hijjah, the night of Dhul Hajj, that is the month, the 12th month. That is the day of Arafat. So in the case of the night, search for it. In the case of the day, I've given you a deposit of everything you want. Blessing, get it. Forgiveness, get it. Compassionate of God, get it. Anything you want, get it. That is why the Prophet said that all prayers on the day of Arafat shall be accepted.
Let me ask this.
Okay.
We understand that Allah has been able to rejoin us. Dr. Musa Allah, if we can see you on the screen there, well, can you advise him, engineers, can you advise him that the images coming from him are fuzzy? If it's fine, then we'll go to him. Otherwise, all right. Dr. Musa Allah, well, if it's not, that's not, we understand it's not the image coming from there, isn't fine. Let's advise him to get that sorted out. Just tell us, Imam Mustafa Akbari, I've always had this curiosity. I mean, I hear of Mount Arafat, and some persons answer to the name Arafat, but it appears to be rare because I mean, one of the most famous persons who bore the name was Yasser Arafat.
Yes.
But it's not a name that you hear commonly.
Yes.
Why is that so?
Yes, it's good because if you're born on the day of Arafat, you know, people are accustomed to naming their child on the day they were born. Like even in Nigeria here, outside you call Asaba, Ladi, Sunday, Saturday, Atine. It's Monday, Al-Itnain. That is an Arabic Lamisi. Jima. You even hear Jima. Jima is a man that is born on the day of Friday, on Friday.
But you hear Don Juma.
Dan Juma, yes, in the north. But in the Yoruba side, they will say Jima. Because that is how they call the day of Friday.
Okay.
So, if you're born on the day of Arafat, people will say, oh, I have a child on that day. Let me name him that. In fact, I've seen my brother's child named after Mecca. He had a child in Mecca, and he named that baby Mecca. We call her Mecca. In fact, she's in Hajj now. My daughter had what do you call her? Mecca. So to tell you that if I have a child today, me too, I will name that child Arafat.
Okay, Imam Agbarere, I want to read out some this quotation.
Yes.
You know, from one of the prophets to you, and then you just deepen our understanding of it. And it says, on no day does Allah emancipate people from the fire of hell in the hereafter, as he does on Arafat.
Yes. Honestly, it's a day of emancipation from shackles of Satan. That is why it is prescribed by way of recommendation that we fast on this day. I'm fasting. And I expect my brothers, in fact, Mr. Kisley, should also be fasting today so that you earn it. If you have taken anything, continue to do it now. It's a day of emancipation. Every prayer, according to the prophet, the other hadith says that every prayer said on the day of Arafat will be accepted, will be granted immediately, just like what we have on the night of majesty. Now, that boils down to the problem we are having in this country. And that makes me so more happy with what they told me that the Hajj Commission is organizing the prayer. Nigeria should benefit more from this day. We should emancipate ourselves from the shackles of hell. In fact, we have hellfires already in Nigeria now. What I mean by hellfire, a lot of security challenges.
That's a metaphor, yeah.
It's a metaphor. Security challenges. Today, Nigeria should tap into that blessing and go by this hadith that anybody that prays on this day shall be emancipated from the hellfire. We should try to imbibe the culture of prayer. In fact, we should laugh. If I were to be in the ends of the affair, I would say, oh, today I want all Muslims to go in a national prayer for the nation so that we get emancipated.
But couldn't that be organized in the respective, today's a Friday,
yes.
Now couldn't that be organized?
Especially, I like that. Arafat now coincide with Friday.
Yes.
Congregation in the month of Arafat and congregation in the respective mosques
all around the country, yes.
It's a very, very important day.
But this emancipation, again, because part of that hadith says, near does he draw them, that's the pilgrims upon Arafat.
Yes.
It's conferred only on the pilgrims.
No. You see, in that place, we have 4 dimensions to it. Number 1, they'll be saying, Labbaika Allahumma Labbaika, when they are in Hajj. And we will be saying our respective prayers in Nigeria. What they are going to do tomorrow is what they call the sacrifice of tomorrow is Adaya. Hadia. We will be doing what we call no, they will be doing Hadia. We will be doing Dabu. We call it Dabu. Another sacrifice. So the nomenclature of what they do there is different to what we do here. Of course, we are not standing in the month, but we join them. If you join them, you also earn the reward of what they earn in that place. That is what I mean by distinguishing the hadith that you just quoted.
All right, Imam Mustafa, again, let's pause you and return to our correspondent, Yusuf Umar, whose Zoom connection is quite stable, and we've had him. We earlier paused him. Yusuf, lead us into the planned special prayer session by Nigerian pilgrims later today. And what are the conditions precedent to those prayers? Because Imam Mustafa here in the studio is telling us that it helps. I mean, if you are fasting and therefore your supplication goes straight to the Almighty, who in his beneficence and benevolence, as always, would answer our prayer. So what are we expecting from Nigerian pilgrims today in terms of the special prayers being organized on behalf of the country and all of us? Well, it's gone off. I think that I mean, we've had this challenge for a couple of times now in the course of this program. So let's knock that down, and whenever it comes up again, we'll have the opportunity of taking that question. Claire, I would like us to go to Ustaz Ahmed Mutala Wasi in our Jos Network Center. Is Yusuf back? Let me just ask our engineers. All right, so our director is saying that he's not back. Ustaz Ahmed, thank you very much for the economic perspective that you brought in on the whole essence of Hajj, and that it is not just a benefit to Saudi Arabia, but ultimately a benefit to the whole world. This might seem a deviation, but I think it's an integral part, because we return to another element of this when we're talking about sacrifice subsequently. Why? When you have millions of pilgrims congregated in one location, you talked about flights, you talked about movements and so on and so forth, logistics, which is good, but we also know that those millions of pilgrims will be need to feed on a daily basis throughout the Hajj operation. And then in the course of making the sacrifices tomorrow, they would need the rams. Now, why has it been a challenge for us, apparently, because I've never heard that said, to say, look, we can also participate in the supplies of the necessaries and needs of pilgrims at this material time. If it is white meat, that's to say, if it is chicken or turkey, we can produce them here, group them here, and then transport them in refrigerated cargo planes. If it is the ram that we also produce, if it is goat, why have we not been able to key in into this economic perspective?
Thank you very much once again for having me. I would like to quickly, before I respond to this, respond to a question raised for Ustaz Abere that about with respect to the idea of emancipation. That hadith is authentic and is derived from a conversation that held between Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the angels when he created Adam. But in Nigerian Khalifa, I'm going to put a visionary on earth, my representative on earth, and they ask him that you are creating a creature you put on earth who is going to shed blood and the like. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told them that he knows more. Don't know. يعني سنجعل في الأرض خليفة قالوا أتجعل فيها من يفسد فيها ويسفك الدماء ونحن نسبح بحمدك ونقدس لك قال إني أعلم ما لا تعلمون. I know that which you do not know. And with reference to this, that on the day of Arafat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will inform the angels, and that conversation will be recalled, that look at them in submission and obedience to me. From 2020 till date, Arafat has recorded more than 2 million participants. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asked them, look at them, they all gathered here to submit their will to me, and with commitment to observe living on earth according to the principles of humanity that I spelled out in the Quran for them through Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And Allah will declare at that moment that for this I have forgiven them their sins, and whatever they ask from me I shall grant them. So coming back to the questions you raised, which is a co-economic angle, of Hajj and Arafat, the slaughtering of animals during the period of Eid al-Adha, it has a very important effect in our economy, especially our local economics. Let me bring it back down to Nigeria before we take it to Saudi Arabia. Unfortunately, in Nigeria, I hope in the near future I get that right, we don't appreciate data. You cannot organize your communities, a society, and a country well and gain from the human resource and other available resources and harmonize them for development if you don't have data to rely on. I will give you an example of Indonesia. On the 29th of last month, June, the director of livestock for Indonesia, Dr. Hezbollah, announced that Indonesia 2.3 million livestock to be used for the Eid al-Adha slaughtering. They don't need to import much. They are only going to import. They can raise 1.6 million from within the economy and import the remaining part of the livestock they need for the activity from nearby countries. Bangladesh every year would import more than 4 million cattle for the purpose of this pilgrimage. So about countries like Nigeria that have more than enough potential to improve livestock agriculture, so that we will be able to serve ourselves and also supply it to nearby countries. As I'm speaking to you now, Nigeria import most of this livestock we use from Niger Republic and the Chad Republic. And Nigeria, I think, is the country with the largest number of cattle in the world. It has the largest number of livestock in Africa. What are we doing about this? So if you look at the significance of Eid al-Adha on the economy of Nigeria, we stand an opportunity to improve the economy of the rural communities. Our young men can come in and participate in goats rearing, sheep and cattle, especially goat rearing. With little capital, you can start it and build a very big farm that you will be supplying. I have a friend that supplies every 3 months. He harvests 17, 21, 13 in some cases goats every 3 months. He has built a stable economy for himself. And Nigeria can do this. I came across an information during the newspaper review from one of the newspapers, I think Leadership, that northern governors held a meeting to review the national livestock program. I'm happy to hear this, but I hope they will do it right. We have to have reliable data, collect data, and you can do this easily by involving religious institutions. I know during the Eid al-Adha, the religious institutions have a practice of collecting the skin of the animals, which is another aspect of the economy. In Bangladesh, they import 4 million cattle every year for the Eid al-Adha, and then more than 60 comes from the leather skin, from the skin they collect during the Eid al-Adha activity. You can.
I'm sorry, we'll have to contend with these fluctuations in our connection today. Do bear with us. Let's bring in Dr. Musa Olaofe. Hopefully his connection is clear. Thank God his connection is clear. Chief Imam Ansaruddin, Society of Nigeria, Abuja branch, but is joining us, of course, via Zoom from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Dr. Olaofe, thank you once again for joining us. Let's quickly gain on time and ask you to give us an insight into the virtues, or if you may, the significance of this last 10 days, during this pilgrimage, especially the days considered to be the odd and the even days. I'm afraid we are could not hear Dr. Laufe. We could see him clearly, but we could not hear him. We do hope to rectify his audio. And then if we have our correspondent, Yusuf is also not here. Okay, so let's come back to you, Imam Agbariri. I just asked Dr. Laufe, that question. The last 10 days, it's been, talked about,
Yes.
Prominently during Arafat,
Yes.
especially the days considered as odd and even.
Yes.
Can you give us an insight into that?
Yes, Layal Asri. You see, the last 10 days of the Hajj commemorates a very important period within the Islamic time. You see, the last 10 days were recommended to be the time of fasting. That is number one. You fast this last 10 days. When you fast in the last 10 days, your sins will be expiated. Sins of 2 years past and that of the 2 years to follow. Meaning that God has given you the latitude.
Okay, Imam,
yes.
please let me pause here and then again we were told that our connection with Dr. Laufe is clean. Dr. Laufe, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm hearing very well.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you. So I asked earlier on for you to give us an insight. It's a question that Imam Agbariri has started answering. But being there, just tell us about the odd and even days within the 10 days of this pilgrimage.
And you can see that the last 10 days of, the first 10 days of the Hijjah is the day that you expected of the Muslim Ummah to fast and to do some other zikr and then to seek for Allah's forgiveness and to give out charity to the poor and then to the needy rather. And at the same time, they should do things, a lot of remembrance, the work of Almighty Allah and what God has done for them to appreciate Allah and then to prepare for the Eid al-Kabir, that is the slaughtering of the ram on the 10th day of the Hijjah. And you can see that the night of the Hijjah, that day of Arafat in which we are in now, all the Muslim Ummah all over the world, we are all here praying, supplicating to Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that was expected of every one of them. And at the same time, you do it in such a way that Almighty Allah is pleased with them and they'll be very happy with whatever they are doing here. And you can see even Nigeria, we are really conducting ourselves very well here. They are really doing it, they are praying for the country. They are doing a lot of things that Allah is so pleasing with us and we are so happy with it.
Well, Dr. Olaofe, thanks. You just mentioned, among other things, that Nigerian pilgrims are happy. They are also praying for the country. Earlier, our correspondent, Yusuf Umar, did indicate that there will be special prayers today by Nigerian pilgrims for all of Nigerians and our country in particular against the backdrop of current challenges that we are facing. What do you know about this special prayer session coming up later today?
Well, Nigerians are ready. All states of the Federation, they've all organized that prayer and they are doing it. Even it is not until when anybody is telling them. Every 5 daily prayers we do remember Nigerians in our prayers. And then the circumstances in which we find ourselves, nobody is happy with it. And we know that this is the best place for us to move closer to Allah and supplicate and tell Allah our challenges, how we can be able to solve this problem for us. And Nigerians are ready, and the prayers is going on everywhere. When we are at Muna yesterday, we did it. When we are at the Medina, we did it. And at the Arafat now, the prayer is still going on. As we are praying for ourselves, we are praying for our country, Nigeria, to survive with all these challenges.
That's fair. As you said earlier, most Muslim Ummah are all in performing the Hajj at the moment. Of course, you're at the Arafat at the moment, clad in simply white, cloth. Speak to us about the significance of this white robe, and perhaps, has it against why it's difficult for especially our leaders who are at the moment performing the Hajj, to apply the memory of what this represents in their daily activities here?
Now you can see that we are all the same now. We wear the same cloth, white and without fines, without cabs, without anything, to tell us that we are all equal before Almighty Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. And then if anybody you want to see, you see them freely. Anything, we are all healing ourselves live and direct. And the significance of that is to tell you that we came with nothing and we shall return back with nothing. So whatever you have, you think that you have it. Allah is telling us that every one of us, we are all equal before Almighty Allah. Either irrespective of the tribe, culture, religion we belong to, we are all the same here now. We are doing the same thing. When we are coming this morning, we are all saying Labbaik Allahumma Labbaik. When we put our ihram, yesterday going to Muna, we said the same Labbaik Allahumma Labbaik. So every one of us here, that's why symbolizes what we call unity, what we call preparation for whatever challenges we are facing, and preparation that Allah will see all of us the same on the day of Qiyam.
Dr. Alaf, thank you for that explanation. But I think part of the question that my colleague Claire asked is to say we appear to have the experience of not just of this Hajj now, but also for Christian pilgrims, Nigerians, individual Nigerians, Nigerian leaders, persons in positions of authority, whether in politics or in business. They perform this, and then you experience what we just talked about in terms of the simplicity, in terms of the purity and oneness and remembrance of the fact that we came with nothing and we're going to live with nothing. But upon return, and almost immediately thereafter, everybody's back virtually to their old ways. How do we overcome this?
You can see clearly that the challenges which Allah for prayer, and we are all the same here now. You will see that everybody, we are all ready to call on Allah, to ask Him for forgiveness, to ask Him for so many favors. We are never ready to show us, because Al-Hajj Arafat, what we call Hajj, is for us to be at the playground of Arafat here, in which we are all doing now, that we should use that opportunity. Either whatever position you think you find yourself, just believe that Allah is ever ready to show mercy on us, especially we Nigerians, so that with this prayer we shall surely overcome all these problems, challenges we are facing. And I know and I believe God is on our side to solve this problem for us.
Okay, just one more thing about the collective prayer. I know that this particular Hajj is very significant, not just for the individual Nigerian pilgrim, but also for our country. Might there be, apart from the collective prayer, might there be a dedicated prayer for the cause, for a particular cause for this country? Is that likely to happen in the course of the special prayers that have been called?
Yes, we from FCT, for example, we have decided that we must pray, we must dedicate a particular day for Nigerian to pray for this country, so that well, I don't know of other states, but we from FCT we are doing that, and we are ready to do that. And I'm telling you that even our Minister of State is here with us. The all other members of the National Assembly were all together here. In fact, they were even right from our bus when we are coming. They even reminded us that please put Nigeria in your prayers, because you need it at this crucial period. We are here when this issue of the prison attack occurred, and then we are not happy with what is going on. So with that, we have dedicated a particular day today in Arafat, and when we even leave Arafat,
will keep on doing that thing for Nigeria. And I believe that before we come back to Nigeria, many good things will happen in our country.
Clear. That's Dr. Musa Allah. Thanks for the stable connection that enabled you to respond to our questions. We're going to have to take a short break now, and when we return from the break, we'll continue with the conversation. We do hope that we're able to get your good self and our correspondent Yusuf Umar back so that we can take a few of our questions before we wrap it up on this program. It's Good Morning Nigeria. We'll take a short break. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria, still on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Let's return to our studios and bring in Imam Mustafa Abari, an Islamic scholar and also, of course, a lawyer. Imam Mustafa, the other aspect of it beyond Arafat Day has to do with the sacrifice of the ram that is also associated with the Eid al-Kabir festivity. Now, in a sense, that has become a metaphor for what Ibrahim did in seeking to obey the call to say, look, get your most precious and sacrifice him. But at the point at which the sacrifice was to be made, the Almighty substituted it with a ram. Now, let's bring it down to our current experience. Why? Because we also ask this question when it is time for the Christian festivity. Why is it, as it were, very challenging for us as human beings, and particularly as Nigerians, to step forward with that which we consider most precious and sacrifice it? I'm not talking about a human being now, but let's put it this way, our earthly possessions, the things that we are going to leave behind when we get into that coffin. Which if you see a coffin, you know the way it is.
Yes.
Why is it difficult for us to imbibe this value and this virtue, and instead everyone is filling his pocket, everybody?
Well, I can't agree less with you. And honestly, it should be self-appraising for everybody in Nigeria. You see, I always say this anytime I come around, that in this country we profess to be religious, but we're not practicing the religion. We only claim as religious people as we are. Now, everything that we have in our religious life has come to tailor our life in a better shape. But the reverse is the case. See Ramadan, for instance, has come to teach us perseverance. But after Ramadan, we are not persevere. We don't persevere again after Ramadan. But before Ramadan, we will say, I'm hungry. Allah will say, okay, I want to test your strength. Try to be strong in the face of adversities, in the face of challenges. And that is why he says, okay, this is the social aspect of Ramadan. Another social aspect of it, give charity to people. But immediately we finish fasting, you see people eating, devouring again. That is the same thing with the issue of the Prophet Abraham that he just told me now. It's a trial that Abraham passed. He passed the test. But we are pretentious. We pretend so much. In fact, if God says, give me that which you beloved most, that which you like most, that which you treasure most, we will say, okay, we want to do it. But deep inside us, we will not do it.
We're hesitant.
We are hesitant. Prophet Abraham has been asking Allah, give me a child that will be my heir. And Allah gave him. Immediately Allah said, okay, it is that same child I want to take. And he had this thing in a dream. When he has it in the dream, and you know the dream of the prophets will come to pass, he said, well, my child, I want to sacrifice you. This is what Allah said. See the child too. Another example that we should also learn to imbibe. The child said, oh, Father, satajidni insha'Allah min as-sabirin. If wal ma'tumar, do that which you are ordered. The child said that to the father. And the father said, okay, let's go. And they went to the place where the Muna. By the time the man started it, he wanted to slide it, at the point of sliding, that is when God say, okay, I'm giving you a ransom in the place of that. So what I'm saying is this: we are not sincere. No sincerity of purpose.
Why?
I don't know. It shows maybe our social life had beclouded us from the religious perspective. Immediately we do away from the mosque. When we get out of the mosque, we throw away the garments of religiosity, and we take over the garment of Nigeria in us.
Maybe
I don't know.
Pressure. But let's kiss the
now.
Yusuf is online, and our NTA correspondent, of course, joining us from Saudi. Yusuf, as a first-time pilgrim in Saudi, can you share with us what you've learned so far about Islam as a religion, and then how it is practiced, especially in our country, in relation to other things?
Well, clear. If you are talking from that perspective, that bond of unity, especially here in Medina and let me say Saudi Arabia in general, where Muslims come across from across the globe. Most of the people you meet here is always Salamu Alaikum, meaning peace be unto you, peace be unto you, peace be unto you. And each other is celebrating his brother by having that privilege. And one important thing that I want to share with you people is that we are indeed blessed as a nation. Most of once they see a black person here, they will start celebrating him. Nigeria, Nigeria, Nigeria. That shows that we have a kind of cordial relationship as a nation between us and most of these countries in the world. And the more we rise up and do other things that will help us take our rightful position in the countries of the world, the more it will help us again. And moreover, let me chip in a little bit regarding what one of the stars from Jos was saying regarding the economical aspects of pilgrimage. It might surprise you people that most of the food that is being given to the pilgrims here in Saudi Arabia is being supplied from Nigeria, meaning it is our normal local food, the normal true, the rice, and the rest. And when you look at that helped them a lot by not forgetting the home. They were able to get what they usually eat at home, and it also helps them. They get a complete balanced diet. They didn't get something that is out of what they usually use as food, which might cause some kind of problem with their health.
Well, Yusuf, thanks a lot for that information with regard to supplies of meals that are locally.
And Kingsley, quickly to even add to that, most of the like Nakon engage 4 different vendors to provide food for Nigerian pilgrims, and it's important to know things out of those vendors that were being attracted are Nigerians. Either they came from Nigeria or they settled here. And like one of those who we had a conversation with her, she had 108 staffs within that as a vendor within that company, and a good side of it is that about 45 people staff of her are Nigerians. So indirectly, that have added value to us, and the money, the exchange that of the transaction that is between us and some of them here in Saudi Arabia, at least Nigeria is getting her own share. We are not only spending, but indirectly, Nigeria is also gaining out of it.
All right, Yusuf, thanks a lot once again for the information that you have provided. But I'm sure you listened to Ustaz Ahmed when he was narrating the broader economic perspective on this matter. What you just said about the Nigerian experience so far, these are good beginnings, we would say, because Ustaz Ahmed took a broader view of the economic perspective of Hajj. For instance, I mean, if you talked about logistics and movements and so on and so forth, yes, we have Nigerian aircraft, Nigerian owned or Nigerian registered aircraft, but we don't manufacture any of those aircraft. Those aircraft will, of course, would have used aviation fuel. Aviation fuel is not refined in this country at this moment. So when we're looking at that perspective, part of the consideration, maybe this is an issue you may wish to find out, because we have some of our colleagues who've been on Hajj, and they indicated, for instance, it looks like Yusuf is off, but if your audio is on, you can take it from there. Your daily meals, for instance, I mean, I mentioned white meat. If it is chicken, people are eating. If it is turkey, if it is goat meat that they are eating, and then you have millions of persons who consume these things. Not every country whose citizens are performing the Hajj could have the benefit of what Nigerians are getting now. That's to say, get Nigerians to supply your meals. But the ingredients you would need, we're talking about the supplies. I mean, it's not, okay, when we say, for instance, that Nigeria is importing frozen poultry products, we are importing that from producer countries. So we are saying the challenge is for us to be able to also key in, recognize what those business opportunities there are, and then take advantage of them. I mean, I don't know whether you'll be able to get this. How many goats are slaughtered in Saudi? How many chickens are to be taken in Saudi? And how many rams will be slaughtered in Saudi? And of course, Saudi Arabia is not producing all of those items, Yusuf. Right. Yusuf, I'm sure he heard that, so he could probably take that as one of his take-home assignments. Yusuf, let that be one of his take-home assignments. When he comes back, we'll have more reports from him. Yusuf Umar, our correspondent in Saudi, right there. So let's come back to our studios, Imam Mustafa Agbari. Imam Mustafa Agbari, your explanation is noted, because when we say we are making sacrifice, we talked about fasting and the imperative of the virtues of fasting. Yes. I mean, it's not just Ramadan. Christians also observe the Lent, yes, which is 40 days. But how do we, in our current, Nigeria was never always like this. Let's recognize that. Yes. There were times when this country worked. There were times when you were your neighbor's keeper. You were your brother's keeper. There were times when you were good neighbors. Yes. There were times that you would leave your child with your neighbor to say you are coming. But today probably will be a kidnapper that will be operating. So our country was never always like this. And our challenge, our focus is to say, how do we retrieve our country back and then get ourselves into a more livable environment?
Yes. Honestly, that one, the buck will now stop on the doors of the religious leaders. We religious leaders. I want to believe we have to change our style of preaching. Preaching nowadays, for instance, you see, we are preaching in mosques and churches, speaking about blessing. Just that is what we are talking. Prosperity. We declare that you shall be fine. Everything shall be well with you. It is about money. Let us go back to spirituality. Mm-hmm. Preach spirit of God to people. I think that is where we got it wrong. I'm just appraising it because I could also see, I'm also 5 decades on the heart. I could recall how it were when I was young. Those days that you sleep in another person's home and you come back home alive. Very safe. Mm-hmm. You could travel. I recall when I was going to Kano studying in those days, this same road that we took, not the Mina, we will take it from Kaduna to Bukuru, all of that axis. You can't go there now. So what I'm telling you is that, how did we get to this point? Shows that some people, evil spirits are inside them. And some people as well, because of the propensity of making riches.
The riches that we're not going to take away, Claire.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Making riches that are, yes. You just want to be enriched, you just want to get rich quickly. And you see, you just say something, somebody may just fall and die. And that is what the garb, that the way means. It means that when you die, it's only on white, just 2 coats that you'll be wrapped in and be buried with. You won't go with all your riches. Even your house, they will take you out. and go and take you somewhere. So what I mean is that we should recoil, go back, have a rethink in our preaching style. All mosques should be talking about spirituality. See what my brother from just said. Let us think deep in our preaching, not just the face of the textual authorities. Let's go into the economic. Let's go into the social impact of what the scripts are saying. Don't just say, "Yeah, you're ladida amano," or you will believe. Tekullah, fear God. Every soul should be thinking of what you prepare for his tomorrow. No, go into fear God. What is the meaning of fear God? Don't harm your neighbor. Don't get what does not belong to you. Don't kill. Don't get killed. Don't use the name of God in doing evil. Don't say Allahu Akbar while you are doing evil. Is God associated with evil? So this is the line of arguments that I want to prefer in terms of getting to the solution.
Yes.
Because this country will be great again. Yes. I was in England some time ago. Everybody will see you in Nigeria. Every music belongs to Nigeria. You don't even listen to American music again. Every good man, Nigeria. If you are preaching, they will say good Nigeria. As a black man, I mean. Why won't Nigeria work back home? So that tells us that we religious leaders, our political leaders, their own will come another day. They have distorted this country. They take what does not belong to them. Somebody is in the act, is a politician in Nigeria, in legislature, and he's taking what does not belong to him.
Sorry, Imam Agbariri, I'm sorry to interject. We need to, gain on our time left. There's a heart-rending development now, especially among religious, clerics, and there's no day that passes that we don't hear the issue of rape, either by cleric, rape by a cleric or a caregiver or whatever. Is this a failure of religious teaching, a failure of society, or a failure of the individual to imbibe what is taught?
It's about individual. Let me tell you. People will say you preach that which you don't practice. Yes, we should search our souls. All of us that profess to be religious leaders. Among us, we have multi-millionaires. Stalking. You understand me? Me too. I should have praised myself. The issue of rape is an individual thing. The society does not tell you to go and rape a person. And from the legal regime, if I tell you the offense of rape and the punishment of it is life imprisonment. So it has nothing to do with religiosity.
As a cleric,
let me tell you the area we are having a problem in production of our clerics nowadays. Everybody is a cleric. Once you memorize little of Al-Quran, you are a malam. Once you memorize little of our Bible, you are a pastor. So a prophet. Let there be a ministry of religion where our prophet and our cleric, our malams will be examined. Let's put a Google to search into their life whether they merit to become Muslim leaders or Christian leaders. We don't do that. That is a failure. In Saudi Arabia, you can't call yourself an imam. You can't even establish a mosque. See Abuja, everybody will establish a mosque and say I'm an imam. Leadership push you. You want to become. See what is happening in churches and mosques. People fight for leadership position. Are we worshiping God? Are we doing so? If we fail on our side as persons, what are we going to transfer to the larger society that we are leading? Failure everywhere.
All right. I must thank you, Imam Mustafa Agbariri, Islamic scholar, for your Agbariri.
Yes.
Okay, for your insights.
And Madam Olaope, I want to congratulate my brother, my person in Saudi Arabia for making this Hajj pilgrimage.
I'm sure the message will get to him.
Yes.
Let me once again appreciate you for sharing your thoughts with us on this important Arafat Day.
Thank you so much.
We also like to appreciate Ustaz Ahmed Murtala Wasey, who is the Secretary General Al-Bil Maruf Foundation, and he joined us from our Jos Network Center in Plateau State. Unfortunately, we don't have him. Also, Dr. Musa Olafe, Chief Imam, Ansaruddin Society of Nigeria, Abuja branch, who also joined us via Zoom from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and our own correspondent, Yusuf Umar, who is also performing the Hajj for the first time. Thank you, all of you, for your insights into Arafat. So let's take a look at sports. And of course, yesterday, the Super Falcons came back and by defeating, of course,